So at one point, I actually thought I was going to have a deal with Fox for a feature film version, and uh, that was going really well. But it makes an interesting story that I wanted to share with you guys. So my pitch at Fox actually was never planned. It happened out in Los Angeles, but I didn't go out there for the actual pitch. I actually went out. This was back in 2013. Yeah, back in 2013. And I went out to spend about 3 weeks in LA. I live in Orlando. And I went out there for that long because there were 4 events that I was going to. There's the U.S.-China Summit, and I went out there for that to support one of our partners on another feature film project that I was working on. Here you can see a picture of all the main people who are involved in that. So we've got Peter Shao, who is our Chinese investor on the far left, and there's me. And then there's Barry Cook, our director, and Barry's done a lot. He was one of the co-directors of Mulan, for instance. And then next to Barry is the writer-producer Jeff Scott and producer Stephen Hahn. So we were all there, and we met up at CTN, which is another event that I went out there for. So it was a great opportunity for us to talk through as we were going through the conversion between the Chinese and the English versions of this other script. And I was also going out for the animation celebration and for the for AFM, American Film Market. And I went to AFM because one of our clients in my consulting company we had written one of her scripts for her for a feature film. So I mentored her through AFM and took her through, introduced her to a bunch of producers and distributors. And she actually ended up landing a deal for it, and she's in post. The movie's already been shot, and she's finishing up post on that movie right now. And in fact, one of the things I also helped her on was how to do her pitch. And as you can see here, that she actually made it as one of the finalists in the pitch competition at AFM as well. So that was all really cool. So while I was on this trip to LA, I was actually still in production too. I was the animation director on a big music video, animated music video. And I had to deliver the boards and animatic while I was there. Now I had one of my other artists helping me on it, but I had to finish the boards and then do the final edit on the animatic. So I was doing that on the plane. I was working on that in my hotel room. I was just constantly working. So thank God for my Cintiq, my companion, because otherwise I couldn't have been portable enough to work on it. So I was able to do all these conferences and keep up with all my work and keep drawing at the same time. It's crazy hours, crazy hours. At the animation celebration, I was talking to a lot of people. It was a really great fun time. I just love that event. That's put on by Gene Thorin, the publisher of Animation Magazine, over in Marina del Rey every year. So I was there hanging out, and I ended up talking to Chris Wedge, the founder of Blue Sky Studios, the Ice Age movies, things like that. And I was telling Chris what I was up to, and he said, "Oh, you should probably talk to my partner, the person that he works with at Fox Feature, one of the women executives there." And I said, "I would love to." He said, "Well, she's here. Let me introduce you." So Chris introduced me to her, and it was really loud. It was great. We got a chance to talk, but really didn't get a chance to get into the pitch there. She said, "I'd rather be able to spend some time and really hear this and not be interrupted by everyone else here. Do you live around here?" I said, "No, I'm only in town for a few days." So we actually ended up making a meeting. It was either 2 or 3 days after the animation summit that I met her at the studio. So that was really cool. I love the Fox lot. I hadn't been there in a number of years. So I ended up driving out there a few hours early just to make sure I was there on time. But with a little extra time, it's a fun lot to walk through. The Simpsons produced out of there, so I'll walk by the Simpsons. Well, there's a huge soundstage with the Simpsons painted all over it. There's a soundstage with Star Wars painted all over it. And the Simpsons office buildings are there. So I walked around through the sound stages, enjoyed myself, and then went over for the meeting. So my meeting actually ended up working incredibly well. I mean, she absolutely loved it. I'm going to read a couple notes here that I had. She said she loved the scale of it. She loved the goo bubbles, and if you remember anything about early times I've talked about, the goo bubbles are the remnants of making dreams in our movie is this nightmare goo. And the nightmare goo can be formed into somehow living creatures. And these little goo bubbles are just troublemakers. I call them the kind of like oily tribbles. And she just loved how there's this comedic element that goes through the whole thing. And she said this is only the second project she has loved that's come through Fox in the last 3 years. I thought, oh yeah, this sounded great. So I mean, I'm getting pumped like crazy on everything she's saying. She says, and I think we're going to need at least $100 million to do this movie right, because they thought the scale was incredible. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, absolutely. I'm just agreeing, across the board, absolutely, 100 million, let's do it. Now I told her about an offer that I had that I'd gotten at the summit, animation summit, where she and I had met with one of the producers of Caxton Animation down in Mexico. Now, I've got that whole story on the fiasco of dealing with Caxton in a future blog, so just keep your eyes out for that. But they had made a verbal promise to make me an offer in writing. And so I told her, I said, I should have something coming in from Caxton. And she said, well, I said, I'd really want to see if we can push this through quickly so we can beat them to get your property. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is like a dream, right? This is what you always hear about. This is what you want to hear about your own project. So everything sounds great. And I head out and I thank her. And it looks like, just look at my notes, about a week and a half later, I hadn't heard from her. So I left a voicemail because I wasn't able to reach her. And then I sent her an email just touching base. And I didn't get a response from it. So then I was represented by Metropolis at the time, they were my agents, and so I told them all about it, and I said, you try to get hold of her. So my agent kept trying, and he wasn't getting any response from her. It was getting frustrating. So then about 3 weeks after our first meeting, it was December 4th, looking here again at my notes, I actually caught her on the phone. I had her cell phone, and I caught her briefly on the phone. And she said, look, I'm in a meeting, let me call me back. And then, quote her, she said, it's all cool. I'm thinking, great, all cool means, yeah, we're still moving forward. And then she never called me back. And it's unbelievably frustrating. So then I waited a couple months, and in February, I left a message with her assistant, and she never called me back. In May, I left another message with her assistant, and she never called me back, and my agent never heard from her during this whole thing. So, I literally heard nothing. After she told me it's all cool, I want to do this for 100 million, I love it, it's one of my favorite projects I've seen, from loving it to absolutely nothing. And it's really frustrating. I mean, anyone who's been pitching a lot has stories kind of like this. It makes it somewhat easier because you know that you're not the only one. But it's still hard as hell. I mean, it is just frustrating as shit when you deal with this. Now, the only chance I'm going to have of actually selling and getting it out there is by continuously getting it out. So you just have to put that behind you and keep going. But yeah, that's some hard stuff to deal with at times. So, I still can't believe I got that. It seemed like I was close. Maybe I wasn't close at all. Maybe I wasn't. But it was a good time, not a good ending.